Redskins Postgame Live, presented by Geico and by your Washington, D.C. area GMC dealers.
Well, the Washington Redskins close out the season on the road in Dallas, unable to ruin Dallas's day, although the Eagles won anyway, so they were going to be knocked out of the postseason. But 47-16 is the final. The Washington Redskins just 3 wins on the season, which means changes are a-coming for the Washington Redskins. Burgundy and Gold interim head coach Bill Callahan, will he remain in position? Or who will be taking over? The same for Bruce Allen. So many decisions yet to be made as we close the season out. Glad to have you here with us on Redskins Postgame Live. Julie Donaldson, Brian Mitchell, Santana, Moss, Trevor, Matich. Guys, a little sad here. I don't ever want the season to end. I know a lot of people said, you know, has to be a very difficult job when you only have 3 wins to celebrate on the air. But I have to say, win or lose, it's been a fun ride, and we have one more show to go. And this is it. The Washington Redskins coming back home with a very disappointing season. There were a lot more expectations, a lot more hope for this season. But after an 0-5 start, you knew the direction that it was going, and the team knew that as well. They fired Jay Gruden, and here we are. Looking back on this game, Santana, let's start with you with your opening thoughts. What will you take away against Dallas?
Oh, I just look at, this game, coming into this game, and so many guys that you was depending on to probably end the season with or finish the season with wasn't healthy or wasn't playing. And so for all those guys who went out there and played their tails off, you tip your hats off to those guys and say, job well done. You fought hard long enough, but I think after the third quarter, those guys really kind of just, gave up and said it's over.
I think when you look at it, people say it's professional football, and yes, it is. But in this game, one of my friends sent me a text, and he said the varsity against the junior varsity. And that's basically what it looked like. You had a lot of guys that were not on this football team just last week. A lot of guys that do not play at the level as a lot of guys on the Cowboys team played at. I'm happy Dallas is not going to the playoffs. But ultimately, the guys went out there and gave their all. They tried to play their butts off. They were just outmanned by a better team. But when you look at the season starting, you come into it with a mindset that everybody can reach their goals. And I don't think everyone, coaches and players alike, played to the max of what they can do.
But there were some bright spots that continue to be bright. At receiver, Steven Sims Jr. and Kelvin Harmon showed more flashes of what can be in the future. Montez Sweat, first-round draft choice, pass rusher, showed a lot of terrific potential. He has been getting better in the second half of the season, even though the wins haven't been there. And then, of course, there's another young linebacker that needs to learn how to not be the victim of spectacular pancakes. But he will. And so there's good and there's bad, but overall you can see where the future lies, and that future looks bright.
All right, so let's kind of go through this a little bit, because you saw Steven Sims Jr. for the 3rd straight game find the end zone. And it took a long time for him to get in there. First off, he starts being basically in the bubble, not sure if he's going to make it. And we knew he was somebody to keep your eye on, Brian, during training camp. But with Trey Quinn in there, his opportunities in the game plan were very limited. He's made the most of those as of late, along with Kelvin Harmon. He was a player that really has had to learn to fight to be able to get out there and be a part of the plan. Brian, you take a look at the young receiving corps with Terry McLaurin. How would you evaluate the promise that they have heading into 2020?
Very, very bright. I think when you look at Terry McLaurin, you look at Steven Sims, and you look at Kelvin Harmon, those 3 guys have already shown. When we talk about Trey Quinn, but when you look at Sims and Harmon, look at their production compared to what you were getting from Trey Quinn. I think they should be guys that should get the opportunity prior to him getting an opportunity next year. But you have those 3 guys, you can still use another. You could probably get a veteran guy to come in so those guys could truly learn. But McLaurin, we said it before, Tanner, very mature, doesn't act like he's the age he is.
You talk about them learning from something. Santana, how hard is it for them to do what they're doing? Because they really don't have any veteran receivers on that roster to kind of show them what it takes. You got 3 rookies making plays.
Well, what I spoke on this a couple of weeks before, and you have to give a lot of that credit to Ike Hilliard. Having a receiver coach with the knowledge of the game, who's played on, a high level, to be sitting in that room with you and giving you all that knowledge, dropping all those jewels to you. These guys are young guys. One of the things you got to credit the young guys too. They're eager to learn. They're eager to get that knowledge. Some of these older guys, they come in them doors, they don't want to be coached. They feel like they know everything. So I'm pretty sure Ike is giving them everything that they want, and it shows up every Sunday. These guys out there making play after play after big play after big play.
And another bright spot, rookie right guard Wes Martin, number 67 out of Indiana.
Mauler.
Right. He held his own. He did well. He was inactive for a lot of games early in the season. Then Brandon Sheriff, their Pro Bowl starter, ended up not being able to play anymore with the injury that he spent a lot of the season playing with. Martin had to be pressed into service, and he's done really well. You could see this guy could develop into a starter. The other guard, left guard, Eric Flowers. Yeah. I mean, from an age standpoint, he's just now starting to enter his prime. And this year, he's showed a lot of promise that he could be a starting left guard for this team and solid for a long time to come.
I think that's the thing that makes your team. We look at so many guys on this team. They're not first round or second round draft pick, which most fans want to look for, but they're guys who now develop into playing as very, very constructive professionals. And I think that makes your team better when you get those guys. Flowers, a guy came in cheap. People thought his career was over. He's shown now he can move to another position and play. You know, you get a guy like Martin, you know, not first round draft pick, but still very, very consistent when he plays. And that your receiving core, nobody's a first-round draft pick, but all three of them have shown that they could be effective on the field.
Can they match up against some of the best in the league? Have you seen enough? I mean, many people want to say, look, you're playing against what? Yeah.
They have shown the promise that with continued development and coaching, with continued time in an NFL weight room, that they might end up developing into what we think we see now. And these are some of the promising things, some of the positive things we see in what has been a miserable season from a win or loss standpoint. And Brian, you'd like to see receiver Cam Sims out of Alabama eat a few more cheeseburgers, huh?
You know, the thing about it, I look at him and it's the tight end position today is a glamour position. And you look at Cam Sims, he seemed to be being lost in the numbers crunch when it comes to the receiving core. But he's, what, 6'4", 6'5". You put 20, 30 pounds on him, he can probably be a damn good route-running tight end for you. You know, he went to Alabama, so I know he knows how to block. But you put some more weight on him and have him going against linebackers and safeties, I give him the advantage.
Yeah, relatively slow receiver, nothing personal. He gets open, makes plays. Put a couple, a couple of cheeseburgers on him, and he could be a fast tight end.
Too.
Right.
How hard would that be to do, Santana?
It would be hard, especially for the guy. You know, some guys' makeup isn't about being that size or being that heavy. You know, I was a guy that I remember gaining some weight, and I couldn't carry it at 5'9", 5'10". So who knows? At 6'4", he might be a little different. But when we're speaking of these guys going into next year, you know, do the Redskins offense have enough in just these three young receivers? I do believe you have to get a tight end or some more help out of the backfield. I mean, we have some guys whose corner probably pretty much be healthier next year for us, but I will look forward to bringing Adrian Peterson back for another year. I think he's shown us year after year that he still can do it. And even if he's not the starter next year, because these guys just beat him out, you have a veteran there that can really lead that room and show them, how to be pros.
And the guy who didn't play today, quarterback, Dwayne Haskins.
Yeah.
He came in earlier in the season and came in just for halftime against the Giants because of an injury. He had to come in and he looked lost. He was a deer in the headlights. And that established the baseline. The baseline was way down here. But then every week he kept getting better and better and better as a starter. Until last week, the final game that he played was actually his best game of the season. And he just kept getting better. So his trajectory is like this, and he hasn't had a setback in that trajectory yet. So the future looks bright and promising. He hasn't arrived yet, but it's promising for him as well. And he really is the guy that everything else will revolve around, because these young guys are built to come into their prime when Haskins comes into his prime in a couple of years, when they will really be ready to make playoff runs.
I mean, you touch on something right there. You say a couple of years. I mean, to come in and expect a rookie quarterback who basically was written off for the first 6 months here because you were shuffling between Case Keenum and Colt McCoy, the coaching changes. What are you going to do? Do you make the plan? How do you make the plan for him? What's the base plan for him? It took a while for that to all come together. You look at what he was able to do with the rookie wide receivers, and Brian, you were the first to sit there and say, I want him in there. Yeah. And, I think a lot of other people were cautious, saying, what is he going in there with? Because what can he do with who is in there? And we keep asking this question. You unfortunately didn't get to see him today. You see Case Keenum close the season out. But he's now basically, if they get the right weapons around him, he's got that opportunity to build and grow and prove that he is that guy.
I've always believed that you learn by being in action. You can't learn by being on the sideline. I know a lot of people say, well, just let him sit and learn. You sit and learn, you learn how to sit on the sideline and think a football game. But when you get out there on the field and that speed starts, you realize you're not ready for it. So I wanted to see Dwayne Haskins play early, no matter who he plays with. But you saw as soon as he got in with the same guys that the other guys play with, he got better and better and better. And after getting that experience, you can see where he began to ascend. If he stayed on the sideline doing nothing, next year he'll be starting over again. This year he knows he has a baseline to go with.
And we have to talk about, too, and we're about to go out to Texas to bring in our Redskins insider, JP Finley. You have to talk, too, about keeping these guys engaged and wanting to learn. By putting them in the game, he realizes the responsibility. Same as those young rookie receivers. They're just sitting back watching, only knowing what they did in college and then having to learn to be able to get there further into that as well. So
I think for us, giving him a hug. No, you're going to give him a check or not. Don't need to give him a hug, but today, give him a hug.
Give him a hug and a check. All right, so out to Houston we go, to Dallas we go to bring in our Redskins insider, JP Finley, presented by Oarsman Automotive of Virginia. All right, JP, we know tomorrow is going to be a very difficult day with a lot of changes for the Washington Redskins. What's your overall takeaway as this season was closed out?
Yeah, Julia, forgive me. It's a pretty interesting situation unfolding right now here in Dallas. There's a group of reporters are following team owner Dan Snyder to his car, and Snyder and Bruce Allen just spoke briefly, and now Snyder was going that way to a private car, and Bruce Allen is slowly walking that way to where I'm guessing the team buses are. He's walking by himself, and didn't look like he was thrilled. I'll say that much. Obviously, the biggest question is what happens with Bruce Allen. What is his future with the organization? Will he be retained in any capacity? Does he go elsewhere? Is he out of the organization? There's also major news developing right now that Ron Rivera will be in Ashburn tomorrow for a meeting, I assume, with Dan Snyder and Redskins officials. There is a lot happening in this hallway here in Dallas right now, I can tell you. And I think folks are chasing Bruce Allen now to go see if he's going to talk to the media about what his future is going to be. And Dan Snyder's motorcade is pulling out without Bruce and with his private security team. You have Redskins coaches and players leaving to my right. Everybody's going down this hallway. As you can watch the camera now, that Snyder's in one of these Escalades. I don't know which one. And Greg, can you get Bruce all the way down there? Is he too far gone? But so viewers at home understand this hallway goes a long way down the inside here at Jerry World, and Bruce Allen just walked solo down the hallway. Where he's going, I'm not entirely sure. I'll be honest with you. We will probably be able to get a report on if he is on the team plane back to Ashburn. I know he's scheduled to be on the team plane back to Ashburn. We're going to have to stay tuned on all of this stuff all night. But Ron Rivera coming to Ashburn tomorrow is a very big deal. This is going to be one of the hottest coaching candidates available, two-time coach of the year. Generally, if Dan Snyder gets a meeting, he gets his guy. You think about the stories we've heard with Josh Norman and others, that he doesn't let them leave the building. Landon Collins, when the red carpet gets rolled out, when the Redskins carpet gets rolled out, usually it ends successfully. What does that mean for Bill Callahan, who's about to have a press conference here any second? The interim tag was always there, so I think Callahan has understood his role as far as kind of righting the ship for the remainder of the year. Major questions. It's my belief that Eric Schaefer is in line for a promotion, and that's what will happen immediately. Got to stay tuned. Be on our app. Be on the My Teams app, NBCSportsWashington.com, because there is going to be a ton of information. There's a lot happening in this hallway. Let me just say that.
Look, it's the sign of the close of this season. You mentioned Ron Rivera. He was released a little while ago. Of course, we know the Washington Redskins have been doing their due diligence to try and figure out which coach would be the best place for this. We know there's strong interest. We knew other teams would want Rivera, but we also understand this. If he is the top coaching candidate out there, the Washington Redskins are not going to wait. And we know that Dan Snyder will pull all the stops to try and get the guy he wants. To my understanding, I think there's a lot you could probably read into that with him coming here. What kind of a coach do you think he would bring and the authority that he would have?
Well, he's a defensive coach and a big family guy. Players love him. Players love him. And I think he would put a defensive focus to this team. I think they'd be a running-focused team, but I think he would allow Kevin O'Connell to remain in place and to run the offense. And I think that's certainly what the organization would like to see happen, because I know you guys were talking about Haskins earlier. You know what helps Haskins, what helps young quarterbacks is some stability. And think back 10, 15 years now to Jason Campbell, and everybody said was his growth stunted by a new offensive coordinator every season he was in Washington. I think the Skins would like to avoid that with Haskins. So if you can get Rivera in here, listen, this team was bad all year. Let's not mince words. 3-13 is an awful record. It was an awful season. But that defense has some talent. That defense should have been better than they played this year. And I think Ron Rivera is the type of coach that would bring immediate improvement defensively. I also think you would see, I've been saying this for 2 months on the podcast, that I fully expect the Redskins to go to a 4-3 base defense next season, away from the 3-4 that they've been playing. Ron Rivera will institute that immediately. That'll happen the next time we see them at OTAs. They'll be running a 4-3 with Ron Rivera. It's you have to guess that he's going to be the coach. If there's now a public report of him meeting with the team, I know personally that Snyder wants this thing to go fast. He wants a new plan in place and to get away from the stench that has been the 2019 Redskins season.
All right. Yes, I am getting messages now that say it is fair to expect that Ron Rivera will be the next coach of the Washington Redskins. And with that, he's going to want to take his time to evaluate the scouting staff and everything. So I think we would be able to wait for them to hire a general manager, let Rivera come in, get his staff in place, evaluate what he wants, and then we'll see.
And Julie, I think it's important to point out that if Rivera's coming, he's getting some say-so in personnel.
A lot of say-so, I would probably say, yeah.
I heard on pregame with B. Mitch and Trevor saying it doesn't matter who gets hired first, as long as the first person hired is the one with the power. Mm-hmm. I think if Rivera's coming tomorrow on the Black Monday, the first day of the offseason, if you will, I think he's going to be the one with the power. And frankly, I think many of these moves have been discussed at length in Redskins Park. None of this is happening on the fly or spontaneously. I think whatever's going to happen with Bruce Allen out on the football ops, if Eric Schaefer gets that promotion, Schaefer understands that Ron's coming in and Ron's going to have a big role, and Doug and Kyle and Alex Santos and these other fellas all will learn what's going to happen here.
All right, and I know he also likes the young nucleus that this team has, a lot of potential to move it in the direction and form it the way he wants to go. Thank you very much, JP. As you said, NBCSportsWashington.com, the My Teams app is where all the information will be. We know you have to catch a flight because tomorrow morning begins the beginning of many things and the end of many things as well. 2020 is here.
Indeed.
All right, thank you,
It's going to be tight catching this flight, too. So.
Go.
No delays
nice
at DFW.
Nice job, JP. They're having to translate real time what is going on at the end of the season. As soon as we finish, coming up will be Overtime Live, so make sure you stay tuned for all of that. I'm sure maybe even more news will be coming out. So NBC Sports Washington has you fully covered as the Washington Redskins 2019 season comes to an end. There is the owner, Dan Snyder, in Dallas, along with Bruce Allen. But according to JP, they parted separate ways. We will keep you updated as news unfolds and the direction of the franchise for 2020 comes clear. Just 3 wins for the Washington Redskins this season. These are the final numbers in Dallas against the Cowboys. The Cowboys will not be heading to the postseason either, as of course the Redskins were eliminated quite a few weeks ago. But taking a look at the numbers, Case Keenum was your quarterback with the passing and the rushing yards. Adrian Peterson gets 75 of those. Those 2 turnovers were to start the game within their first 4 drives there, but then unfortunately they managed to keep it back in and not turn the ball over after those first 2 to start the game. Let's now hear from the interim head coach, Bill Callahan, on what could be the last time.
Okay.
Bill, I guess start quickly with the game and what you said to your team afterwards. Thoughts on the game and what you just told them to wrap the season.
Yeah, this was a really tough game for us, unfortunately. Credit to Dallas. They're a fine team, really explosive on the offensive end. I thought our guys battled early in the first half. Our secondary was depleted. And so for those guys to come in and play the way they did in a very short week, a short period of time, I commend those guys. I know we had a whole entirely new secondary, but two two new guys right off the street. So that was impressive. But no, we didn't get it done. We kept it close for a while, but they made some big plays and separated from us, and we didn't get back into it.
And ultimately, you understand how we have to ask. Things move quickly. What have you been told about your future in the next 24 hours for this franchise?
I haven't been told anything as of yet. Like I said, I think there'll be a time and place for that. I'm just blessed that, I've been coaching for 42 years, and, I take each day as a blessing, and I take it day to day. And I think, coaching's different because it's about change. It's about transitioning, and so I understand that. I get that aspect of coaching. It's constant, it's continual. It's the cycle of our business. And it's just you accept that whatever fate you get, you get. So. I'm always optimistic in any situation, in any respect. So, I'm very fortunate to be coaching. I thank my lucky stars every day that I can get up and do this. So, it's a real fortunate to be coaching for these amount of years. So I never thought I would. I started out as a grammar school or a high school teacher for 2 years, and now 42 years later, I'm sitting up in front of you guys. So it's a blessing every day that you can coach in the NFL.
Bill, I know we kind of talked about this earlier in the week, but now that everything is done, when you look back at your time kind of leading this team, what stands out to you? What are you happy about? What do you wish you'd done more?
I just thought, we were in a deep hole when I took over the club. We were 0-5, and I really felt that we needed more consistency and continuity and work ethic. I think I mentioned those things at some of the weekly pressers that we've had. But I'm really proud of the way our guys fought. And like I told them in the locker room, I thank them, for their contributions and their efforts and their sacrifices that they make on a week-to-week basis. It's a brutal business. Let's face it, it's a violent game. And so these players, week in and week out, get their bodies prepared, get mentally prepared, and then they go to battle, And so I've got a lot of respect for that, and a lot of respect for the guys in the room that, even the guys that have been here for 17 weeks versus the guys that just got here this week. So, again, it's very much appreciated, very respected, and again, as a staff, we're just really thankful, for everything that they've done. Unfortunate about the results, but thankful for everything that they've contributed.
Bill, people talk a lot about the culture in the building and all that, and especially in Washington. What will it take to turn this franchise around and develop the sort of winners that fans have been wanting?
I don't think it's very far, and you could make a case for being way far away or very close, and I think it's very close. I think there's a lot of talent across the board, across the defensive front. I think there's young emerging players on offense. I think a good off-season program, training camp, would produce a really positive effect on the team. Culture is what you make it, John. Culture is how your players communicate with each other, work with each other, how you operate on a daily basis with consistency, how you develop the leadership within your building on a day-to-day basis, and then just putting the work in, and not only in the off season, but when you get to training camp, having that clear, defined, focused concentration, to be great. And to take each play, each series, each quarter, and take it, as the best you can, and do the best you can. I don't think it's very far. I really don't.
To keep with.
So it's the interim head coach, Bill Callahan. Let's just take a second to talk about the job that he has had to do and has done with this franchise coming in here. He takes over a team that didn't have a single win, 0-5. He comes in and wants to try and change the culture, change the practice, make guys get back to the fundamentals already midway through the season. Santana, for a guy being in that locker room, and you were coached underneath Jay Gruden, how hard is it for them to sit there back and say, okay, there's a new voice, we have to buy in? And what do you think about the job that he did with that locker room?
Well, one of the things I think about, from my playing days of being in similar situations, and when coaches come in, or the situation I was in, we kind of knew Zorn was out the door. And, he was still there. He wasn't removed, but we knew Bruce had came and they had already threatened us. They scared us straight, saying, hey, jobs are going to be basically fought for every week. We're going to be watching you guys. So these guys had that same, notion that, hey, the coach is out, you could be out next. So, one of the things Bill Callahan did is implemented his way of playing this game. Brought these guys back to the basics. And I think you saw a better product. You saw these guys go out there and fight harder and give you something to look forward to every week. So you have to commend him for that. And I think he did a job well done. That's why I want him back. I don't necessarily care about him being the head coach, but I think he did a great job with that makeshift offensive line from the get-go, and I think we need him back just to coach those guys.
I mean, he was saying at the end of last season he had over 70 or so different lineups on the offensive line. Of course, now you could probably say that about the secondary coming in here. But Brain, he's a very thoughtful coach. He at one point made sure he got stern with the team when he needed to, so he's not afraid to be able to use his words wisely with them. I don't know how hard it would be to be able to stay on a staff, though, if another coach is coming in.
Well, a coach is a coach, and when you have opportunity, you have opportunity. But I think what Bill Callahan showed us was we talk a lot about millennials, but they still want to be coached. They still want to be held accountable. They don't mind working if you're consistent with it. Because before, we basically felt that, these guys weren't going to go along with it. But once Bill Callahan got in control, they worked harder. They put on pads. They didn't care about it, and you saw on the field that they fought a lot harder. Didn't get the games, didn't win the games, but still they fought a lot harder, which gave them a chance. So going forward, you need that same style of coach to come in and continue what he started.
Right, and Bill Callahan, I think they respect him. He's not a yeller, but when he raises his voice, it shocks everybody. And one thing that he did was give them not just a reason to play, he gave them an opportunity to show that they still belong on this team.
Exactly.
Because he got the team going together as a cohesive unit. If you're a football team and everybody's trying to cover their own self, then nobody can look good because you've got to work together for everybody to look good. And he got them working together again. Now, they didn't have the horses to get the results on the scoreboard that they wanted, but you could see the effort and you could see guys raise their play, which helps them all in their career, whether it's here or somewhere else. And the players understand that and they appreciate it.
And when we asked every single player in that locker room about the difference, about what Callahan did, they said, look, they all want to be able to play to the best of their potential and their abilities, and Callahan was taking them in the right direction. Of course, we can expect many changes to come as Monday, Black Monday as they call it, is going to be here before we know it. There is still football to be played, though, and one with major implications tonight. Sunday night football. Jimmy Garoppolo and the 49ers face Russell Wilson and the Seahawks with the NFC West on the line, and you can get on the action playing Sunday Night 7 for free on the NBC Sports Predictor app with $100,000 in guaranteed cash prizes handed out every week, and that includes the playoffs. We'll have more on the changes for 2020 and which players will be here and which may be gone.
The final Austin's Big and Tall Lineman of the Week of the season is a young guy who I think has a bright future. Rookie guard Wes Martin. He was on the inactive list for much of the season early in the year and then had to start when Brandon Sheriff got hurt at right guard. He's been there for a while and he has done well. Today, Adrian Peterson averaged 6 yards per carry, many of them straight up the middle. The Austin's Big and Tall Lineman of the Week, Wes Martin.
And well, it is time now for our one-on-one interview presented by your Washington, D.C. area GMC dealers. The Washington Redskins defense left a lot of questions out there on who will be here, who will be back next season. John Bostic, one of those in here, he is now in the locker room.
I mean, like I said, they made more plays than we did, and fought early. I mean, we fought all the way through, but I mean, we had it, kind of close early. We're kind of fighting back, but we gave up some plays, and they were able to capitalize on those plays, and that's what kind of led to their victory today.
This is one of the toughest seasons you've ever been a part
of. Yeah, I mean, but at the end of the day, every season's tough. You play to win it all. You don't play just to have a good record or just to make it to the playoffs. You play to win it all. So every season's tough because I haven't won one. So we just got to get back to the drawing board and see what the future has to hold for us.
This is the last time you'll see these guys. Has that sunk in yet? Is it over?
No, not really. Probably will tomorrow, but it's something you're going in. It's just so much turnover, in the NFL. you know, and you bond with these guys. You become brothers, you know, from OTAs, you know, to training camp to, you know, in the season. You know, you go through your ups, you go through your downs, you know, with each other. You know, so it kind of sucks, you know, that it is like that. But that's kind of the nature of the business.
All right, so taking a look at which players would be here in 2020. Here's a list of the free agents. John Bostic being one of them. Vernon Davis, of course, he just totally reinvented himself with the Washington Redskins, as did Eric Flowers, although Vernon being on the other edge of the age spectrum. Eric Flowers still very young, as Trevor was saying in his. Case Keenum, you have to question what they're going to do with the quarterback. Will he be a backup? Alex Smith still even working his way. That's somebody you don't even know which direction they may go with Alex, as he's been with the team a lot. Let's quickly touch on some of these free agents. Brian, who do you think should stay?
Well, I look at Eric Flowers. I think that's a guy you want to keep around. You look at what he's done. They move him into guard, and he's played terrific this year. So he could have saved his career. That's one guy because he basically, $2 million this year? Not going to be very much against the cap. As we look at the rest of those guys on that, a lot of those guys on that list won't be back here. Yeah. And I think that's understandable. But as we look forward, you look at guys like Josh, the guys like Jordan. Those guys are getting paid top dollar for the production that they've been given, and I don't think they get a chance to come back. You can have nearly $100 million to spend next year. They need to try to get to that.
I think the other guard that's on that list is Brandon Sheriff. Now, he's a Pro Bowler, and he's the guy they'll have to pay big dollars for. Yeah. But I think it's worth it to pay him, and they should have the space available because their starting quarterback is Dwayne Haskins in his rookie deal. Now, they still have to pay Alex Smith. Yeah. So you've still got some complications there on the salary cap. But I think as far as signing Brandon Sheriff, that's important. I also think it's important to re-sign Case Keenum.
Case Keenum, I was going to say that.
Yeah, tell me why.
Well, one of the things you got to look at, who's going to be your backup quarterback? We already riding high on Haskins and saying that next year is going to be, it's his show. So with a guy like Case Keenum, he still has very much potential to go out there and lead a team. And I think this year he showed you he had probably about one or two bad games until they just called it quits with him. So I think he'll be a great candidate to bring back just to stay in that room just in case that we might have to lean on him.
And you watch the way he performed when he comes off the bench.
Yeah.
When Case Keenum comes off the bench, he's very much like Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Yeah.
They're going to let the ball go. And they have that lack of conscience, which allow them to be successful and also can work against them. But you need a guy who understands the NFL game, and he does.
And the question is, will he be willing to be in a primary backup role and mentor role or not?
Somebody else come in and say, you know what, we're going to give you an opportunity to start somewhere else, and on he goes in his journey with learning a new offense. So whichever direction they do go, of course, it's who's going to be making those decisions. And as JP Finley, our Redskins insider, was reporting, at the end of the game, he was seeing Dan Snyder and Bruce Allen come together, have a short little conversation. Dan Snyder go one way, Bruce Allen goes the other. Now, I'm also told that Bruce typically rides with the team bus anyways, but of course we know there's a lot more interesting storylines behind this. JP also reporting that come Monday morning, Bruce Allen, it will be noted that he will be out of the football operations. JP was the first to put that news out there. Trevor here, I mean, how much do we read into what we saw leaving right here at the end of the game?
Well, the metaphor, visual metaphor, I guess, if that's a thing, of Snyder walking one direction and Allen walking the other direction, and JP in the middle, describing them both going the hallway right in front of them. That was fantastic by JP, just fantastic storytelling. I was riveted to the screen as all that unfolded in real time and we heard about it. We don't know what's going to happen. It hasn't been announced. But if we just say for discussion that Ron Rivera will be introduced as the new Redskins head coach in the next few days, if that happens, then, and if Bruce Allen is going to be taken away from the football operation, what that tells me, or indicates anyway, is that Rivera will have most of the power. And that whoever they sign to be general manager or somebody to be in that kind of a role will be someone that will assist Rivera in the job of handling the non-football part of what his power will entail. And so I think that's a really interesting indication. We'll see if it turns out.
And it needs to be someone who Rivera is comfortable with. Because Rivera can't do GM work 24/7. He has to coach. So he needs someone he trusts enough so when they're doing, they come back and they tell him something, he can just take it as fact.
and then make choices.
There you go.
So here's the thing. Assuming that this meeting goes well, which is to my understanding, unless for something terrible goes wrong with this meeting, with Rivera being in Ashburn meeting with Dan Snyder, expect him to be the next head coach. He is somebody that we said you need to have somebody to respect, that has the record to go with it. He does that. And Santana, we were talking about this, the job that he did with Cam Newton. And if he can get that out of Cam Newton, how that kind of sets up Dwayne Haskins Jr. as well.
Well, they're two different type of quarterbacks, but one of the things I was speaking on is just the style of play. When you look at Cam Newton, he shows you that he can play the game like a la Lamar Jackson, Michael Vick. He has to run the ball more than he's going to probably be a great passer in the pocket. So for him to be able to take on a job like that means he had to have a great offensive mind that could be there to assist him with that job. He's a defensive guy, so he's going to come in there and make sure that he's handling his part on the defensive side, but offensively it has to be a coach that can, coach up a scheme enough to make sure that both of these, these cores, meet head to head. You want to have a great, strong defense as well as a strong offense. So I believe he's going to bring in somebody or keep the guy that we have to make sure that he can have a great offense behind his defense.
Now, Rivera's a guy with options. As a matter of fact, there's media reports that the Cowboys would be interested in him, which may be why the Redskins are talking to him so quickly, because they want to make sure he doesn't go to Dallas if Daniel Snyder wants him here. But he deserves to be able to choose the assistant coaches that he knows, that he trusts, that know his language, that he understands, that they will understand what he wants them to do from the get-go. And that doesn't mean they have to be guys that he has worked with before, but guys that he trusts. So it'll be interesting to see if they keep any of the guys here. I'll tell you this, both line coaches, Bill Callahan, Jim Tomsula, if I am Ron Rivera, I am interviewing those guys for sure.
Norv Turner was his offensive coordinator at Carolina, and so that's the thing. You can be a defensive coach, but just as you were saying, bring in the right people to be able to get them on track. And to my understanding, again, he would have that total control over that in making those decisions.
See, that's fascinating because as just possibilities here, right?
Yeah.
Norv Turner
that's all it is right now, right?
one of the very best play callers in the NFL.
He
just
scheme it up.
All-star play caller. And they've got Kevin O'Connell, the young guy, right, who's an up-and-comer. And it'd be interesting to see if they want to go with the young guy who has a bright future or the guy that Ron Rivera knows how to do this stuff.
It would be interesting if he could get Norv to come, how they come, and which coaches he keeps, which coaches he goes to as well. But again, all this is going to be unfolding, folks. This is what happens at the end of the season. So many different meetings happening, some very promising for futures for tomorrow, some ending the jobs from yesterday. We do have more to get to here on Redskins Postgame Live. Stay with us here as we take a look at some of the final pictures of 2019.
Yeah, I mean, everybody knows a lot of things gonna change, tomorrow and moving forward. And, everybody, coaches, players, just gotta be ready for it and just kind of wait and see what happens. But I know 100% Dan is gonna do everything he can and to make sure he gets the right guys in here. And then, from there, coach is going to put in what he expects from the players, and then it's on the players to, man up and get it right. I've been here for 7 years, and I don't even know what my future is, but I want this team, whether I'm here or not, to get to the top. And because I see us there, and I see the guys want it, and I know the guys want it, and I know Dan wants it for the guys, but, some things got to happen, and, once they do, guys just buy in and get to work.
So Chris Thompson, always a bit emotional of a player, realizing that this very well could be the end for him. Let's take a look at our injury report, brought to you by Chase & Boscolo Injury Lawyers right now. Oh my goodness. So we're looking at right now the week 1 starters in the secondary compared to the week 17 starters in the secondary. Landon Collins didn't travel to Dallas. Monte Nicholson, Josh Norman didn't. None of these players. You talk about the job that Ray Horton had tried to do with that secondary constantly shifting. A lot of work to be done. Explains a lot of reasons on why they had a lot of blown coverages as well, although they had that really pretty much from the beginning as well. Here's another little bit of interesting news. So Colt McCoy, apparently from Texas, so he underwent a physical out in Texas or after the game and is not traveling back with the team. He's just going to go straight to Austin. So read into that what you will. Of course, a lot of players tomorrow morning will be flying back with the team now, cleaning out their lockers. They have a team meeting, and then a lot of them will be having flights out back to their respective homes as the season is officially over. Get some time away, go on vacation, spend it with their families, stay in shape, and either come back to the Washington Redskins or to whatever team they do have in the future. So let's talk about some of those positions coming in the future. Of who do they need? What positions do they need? What would you say is the most glaring, Brian?
The tight end position is glaring right now because of the way offenses work today. But I really believe that offensive line needs to be shored up and the tight end. If you do that, I think offensively you can be effective.
Yeah, I say offensive line. I would say a left tackle, and you have to find linebackers. But also you have to know what scheme that you're going to pretty much put these guys in. So those two positions stand out to me.
Yeah, and I'd say safety. Landon Collins has been fantastic in every way except speed. And Monte Nicholson has struggled tremendously. They need to get guys in there to compete at those positions.
All right, so taking a look where the draft order goes, the Bengals taking quarterback. Many people saying that they're desperate for Burrow. The Redskins at number 2. Everybody keeps saying that they're in the bowl for Chase Young. At 2, you would be able to get Chase Young. The big question being, and of course now this is whomever does come in, and if it is Ron Rivera taking that over, do you take him at number 2, or do you try to get more draft options? Because you know there's going to be plenty of teams that want him.
If someone comes and offers you a haul, you take it, because there are enough people in this draft where they can address more than one position. But if no one doesn't, then you take Chase Young. Now, like our haul would be moving from like 2nd to 5th to 10. I don't think you need to move out of that. And then you get a 2nd-round pick. You possibly get another 1st-round pick. If you get something like that, you have to listen to that. You can't just ignore it and say one guy. I've said it over and over again. One guy doesn't change a football team that drastically unless you're damn close already. And I don't believe that they're damn close.
You're agreeing, Santana?
Yeah, I agree with it because I've always been that guy that said you just can't get one piece to the puzzle. You know,
Not
what I mean,
a Chase Young piece.
Yeah, I mean, and he's a great talent. So if there's nothing else out there that you need, then you go get that talent. But we have so many questions, you know, at so many different positions. So if you can get a couple of more draft picks for your positioning and find out you can get some more guys to add to what we already have, I think you take that option other than just going after that glamoring piece.
And remember that the clock is ticking. It's one of the reasons that I think trading back, if someone is willing to offer a proper deal, to get more players now that can contribute is important, because coming up in just a few years, you've got important guys with their contracts coming up. Guys like Jonathan Allen and, you know, guys that you'll need to decide what you want to do with. So you want to have as many young players locked in as possible so that they can, again, all come into their own when Haskins comes into his own. This is a team that's being built around a young core of players. Get as many of those guys as you can.
You know, I was going to use the word rebuild earlier in the season. I was saying, no, you don't do that. We are certainly pretty much at that point, I would say.
But I saw this list, Julie,
all right,
with 24 guys that were 25 years or younger. This team has a promising future.
But it's a young nucleus of guys coming together for the future. As soon as we sign off here in Redskins Postgame Live, the future continues, because Overtime Live, they will continue the conversation. We want to make sure you have everything on the burgundy and gold and which direction they were heading in 2020. We're taking care of you, folks.
I wrote that same thing down about how many guys it was. I wrote down 12.
Time for your toppings for Touchdown, presented by Papa John's. Call Papa John's on Monday for a large cheese pizza for $8.99 and one free topping available after today's game. That will be it for the 2019 season. We're on to 2020, so get your pizza in tomorrow.
Yes.
Okay, so lots of changes to come. Of course, we'll have you covered throughout the day. We will bringing you a Redskins stream from 3 to 4. We'll be there for that. Also, Redskins 100. But by all accounts, we're expecting Bruce Allen to no longer be in charge of football operations and a new coach to be coming in, and we don't know when named, but I would imagine that's going to be soon.
And what they'll do is evaluate the players and decide which ones will help the new coach win going forward, and everybody else they will replace as soon as they can find an adequate replacement.
Evaluate the players, got to evaluate the coaches first. Find out who he wants on his staff so those guys can look at those players.
Hope they got some good stuff on tape. That's all I can say.
Yes,
You saw a lot from the young players, I feel, here to close the end of the season, to put something out there. But we've been saying for, sadly, way too long that what they were playing for was for this moment right here. For whichever coach does come in, whichever direction they go with the front office, to put something on tape to prove that you belong with the burgundy and gold, or wherever your future may be. Thank you so much for joining us throughout the entire season. We know it wasn't easy, just 3 wins, but we kept it fun and we kept it real for you. For Brian, Santana, and Trevor, I'm Julie Donaldson. We've enjoyed this season, but we'll see you now in 2020.